Megan. How are you, Miss Rachel Dennis?
I'm very good. How are you doing?
Good. I'm excited to be here with you today.
Yeah, I'm excited too. So we've got some things going on at Rancho Murrieta, and oh wait. We do have an event coming up at Rancho Murrieta, and it is our Bags of Love event through My City Youth Center.
Yay, love it.
And that is taking place on February 11th from about 2 to 5 p.m. And for that, every Sunday up until then, we are collecting toothbrushes, toothpaste, lip balm, and gum to be able to put in nice little bags of love for the kids there.
I love that. That's so cool.
Yep.
So we're excited too. Over here at Rancho Temecula, we've got some youth events going on, but really it's the greater Rancho world that we're reaching out. Right now we're all kind of doing things together, you know, kind of work within our boundaries that we've got. So we just had an awesome game of kickball with kids from Rancho Murrieta came over, Rancho Temecula. It was a blast. But we are gonna have more events coming up, and we're kind of trying to put out at least one a month.
Nice.
So you can follow us on Instagram to stay in that loop at rancho.mvnt. You can follow Rancho Movement on Instagram and keep in the loop. And you guys are more than welcome to come out and play with us, and we're gonna have tons of fun.
Yeah, and that's a great way to keep our youth involved and still connected.
Absolutely.
So, and we do have other groups as well. We've got some men's groups and women's group, a hiking group, a yoga group out there.
Nice.
All of these are on rancho.tv/groups for you to find. Other than that, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you who are still giving and supporting our ministries.
Yes.
And you can continue to do that at rancho.tv/giving. And you can choose the Murrieta in the drop-down menu.
Your glasses are
Thank you,
fogging
I know.
up. You need some windshield wipers.
So that's what's going on at
Hey everyone, welcome to Rancho United. We are streaming online. We're so glad that you're joining us again here at Murrieta as we continue our series, The Comeback. This is week number 4. And I was thinking about, like, if I was to describe 2020, and one of the words that to me would have been maybe a feeling of a setback, one word kept coming to mind, and that word is powerless. Powerless. Now, I was thinking about the word, but then I looked it up. And powerless means helpless, useless, defensiveless, vulnerable. Have you ever felt maybe a little helpless or a little vulnerable over the last year? Would that be some words that might describe you? I know for me it did. Maybe for some of you it didn't. But I would say that powerless would not be something like I would define my life as being powerless probably ever before that I can think of until last year. This is a word that I've had to deal with. Part of it might have been because of the vulnerability maybe a lot of us has felt, that I have felt with the pandemic. So you kind of feel powerless over this thing that's kind of spreading around the whole globe. I mean, without a doubt, I mean, I didn't have control. I felt helpless in regards to that. But for me, it wasn't that as much. It was more this idea of feeling helpless as I watched people that I cared for go through things. And over the last year, in 2020, I had some friends go through some pretty heavy things. And I felt pretty helpless. I felt helpless about like the inability to do anything to change the situation that they find themselves in. Or maybe I felt useless. That's another one of the definitions, right? I felt useless. I felt useless by what I did, or maybe how I handled some situations that were going on around me. Like I really wasn't being effective in helping them. And it was, I could be honest with you, it was pretty devastating. There were some devastating moments for me in 2020. Moments where I felt like I was failing others. Moments I felt definitely useless and helpless. Yeah, moments I felt powerless. Powerless to be able to change what was happening, not being able to fix things, not being able to help situations out. And this is something I learned. I learned that feeling powerless can be debilitating. It could be debilitating. And it could be a setback from believing that you can make a difference. That's how powerful this feeling is. And I've said it many times before, when we lose, right? When we lose the belief that we can make a difference, that's not a good place to get to. And I felt over the past year a couple times in some pretty heavy situations, I felt like that. And I could tell you, I don't know if I've ever felt that way before. The real debilitating side to powerlessness. I can make you feel like anything. It can make you feel like anything that you've done in the past is kind of useless. It's like, it's amazing when that debilitating setback comes in. You could think back to, any of the good you've done and just begin to question yourself. And you begin to feel like, I can't make a difference anyway, so why even try? Have you ever felt that? Either that just something happened that made you question everything, or just made you kind of feel like you might as well just give up because it doesn't matter anyways, you can't make a difference. Well, today I want to talk about this subject when we talk about the comeback story. And I want to consider a story in the Bible where there's a young woman who felt powerless, but she pushed through. She pushed through that feeling and she changed the course of history for her people. I want to start just by considering the story, okay? And then I believe there are a few lessons that we can learn and maybe some things that we can consider that might help us move from this powerless reality, this feeling of powerlessness, to influence. And that's what I want us to talk about today. And we're going to be talking about Esther. We're talking about Esther. Her story is found in the Old Testament. It's a very peculiar book because it's the only book in the Bible where God is not mentioned in this book. And so there's even some people that don't even like the idea that it's in there, right? Because God's not, but it's so real. It's real live story of situations and circumstances that I think we can really relate to without kind of tying in the mystical, just really what's going on in front of us. The story takes place about 100 years after the Babylonian exile, and it takes place in Susa, which is the Persian capital. And there's basically 4 characters that are in this story. There's 2 Jewish people, which is Mordecai and his niece, who is Esther. And basically, he raises Esther like his own, okay? Then there's the king of Persia, who I guess you can kind of look at him as being kind of a drunken pushover is kind of how you would describe maybe the king of Persia. And then there's Haman. And Haman kind of got to the highest level of a Persian official underneath the king. And I would say that he is the villain in the story. The gist of the story is this, is that Haman hates Mordecai, okay? They do not have a good relationship because when Haman became like the right-hand man of the king, Mordecai refused to bow down to him. And because of that, Haman wanted to, he wanted to see Mordecai suffer, but he decided that he wanted to see all of Mordecai's people, the Jewish people, suffer. And he felt like they should destroy all the Jewish people because they didn't follow their customs and they're just a problem. So he convinces Haman. More than likely in a time when they're partying and when the king is drunk and just in one of his place, Haman convinces the king to make an edict that they would eliminate the Jewish people. So in Esther chapter 3, it says, the king dispatches were sent by couriers all over the king's provinces with order to destroy, kill, and annihilate all the Jews, young and old, women and little children, on a single day, and to plunder all their goods. So that's kind of what's going on with Haman and the king and what they're plotting to do to the Jewish people. Now, in the midst of this is Esther. Esther had been chosen to be the queen of Persia. Okay, so she's like the main queen underneath the king. But before you think wait a minute, man, she's a queen. Obviously, she must have a lot of power. Before you think that, you need to know that it is far from that in that culture. You see, the queen was basically the main sex slave of a harem. And this harem was ruled by the king, and they were only able to approach the king when summoned. What could happen if she didn't honor that and she was to approach the king at any time she felt fit? Well, Esther knew what could happen. Even as the queen, she knew what can happen. She says that all the king's officials and the people of the royal provinces know that for any man or woman, even the queen who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, the king has but one law. What is that law? To put that person to death. So yeah, you have Queen Esther, right? But not a queen as we might consider, the Queen of England or anything like that. We're talking about a different reality. And if it isn't problematic enough that she knows about this law that she could be killed if she was to approach the king, the previous queen refused to come when the king did summon her. He summoned her at a time where he was having a party. There was all these other rulers that were there, and he summoned the queen to come and entertain him and his friends. Yes, I would say that when you say entertain, to abuse her and to allow the others to as well. This is not a pretty picture for women, even for the king at that time. And she had had enough abuse. She had had enough of this, and she refused to come to this party when summoned. And she's banished. And she basically is never heard of again. And at that time, this decree goes out because of that every woman will submit and honor their husbands, and the husbands will rule over the wives in the kingdom. So this is something else that Esther knew about. When the queen did not want to come to another one of these parties where she would be abused, she gets, who knows what happens. Doesn't say what happens to her. But here's the bottom line with that, is that Esther's position as queen was a life of powerlessness and exploitation. That's what she was dealing with. She was in a very difficult situation. So when Mordecai found out that this decree had been made for all the Jews to be wiped out by the Persians here in this area, he knew that there was only maybe one chance. If Esther would go and talk to the king and see if she could make a difference. What a crazy idea, right? To see if she would go in uninvited and stop this slaughtering from happening. Here's what he says to her. He says in Esther 4, do not think that because you are the king's house, you are alone of all the Jews will escape. I mean, he's telling her that, hey, Esther, if they really go after all the Jews, they'll find out you are one too, and you can die as well. Now, if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance from the Jews will arise, he believes, from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. But the immediate family right now will perish. Then he says a very famous statement, but who knows? Who knows, Esther, if perhaps you were made queen for just a time as this, to help your people. So guess what, man? Esther decides to go for it. And remember, this was a decision from a scared, dangerous, powerless place that she found herself. But look what she says. She says, go gather all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day, and all my maids will fast also. And when this is done, I will go to the king, even though it's against the law. Just to understand how crazy this is. And if I perish, she says, I will perish. So she knows she could be going into a death sentence. She's got no power. She's got no right to do this. But she chooses to do it, and she does it. And through some amazing events, Haman is exposed for what he is. He's ultimately killed. The Jews are given a decree that they can defend themselves against this attack, and they are saved because of her very risky choice to approach the king. Even though it cost her a life, it changes the whole direction of her people. You see, Esther's choice moved her from powerlessness to being influential. And she changed the course of the Jewish people in that area. Man, there's only 10 chapters in the book of Esther. I encourage you this week to read through it. Read through the whole book. Or go online to YouTube, watch the Bible Project video on Esther. Man, they outline it so incredibly. It's an amazing story. And it's one that we can learn from. Because you know why? Because I believe that we all have the opportunity to move from the setback of feeling powerless to the comeback of influencing the world around us. All of us can do this. I don't care what position you find yourself in right now. But it's going to take choices for you to make, just like Esther had to. She had to make some pretty powerful choices. And so I want to close our time here together just with 3 choices. 3 choices that I think could move from a setback of powerlessness to a comeback of influence like we see in the book of Esther. And maybe these might encourage you. Number 1 is this: choose to pursue wisdom. Choose to pursue wisdom. I found that pursuing wisdom, if I can make that a habit, it is of such great importance. And not just when big moments like Esther was facing. She chose to listen to Mordecai. She chose to have her ladies fast. I mean, she listened. But in the helping me to make priorities of the everyday life, the little choices, the choices we make every day. Proverbs 16:16 says, how much better to get wisdom than gold, right? To choose understanding rather than silver. That's something we need to pursue. That's something we need to choose to pursue wisdom. And there are basically 2 areas where we can pursue wisdom. You can pursue it with people, and you can pursue it with God. It says purse. It's pursue. You can pursue it with people, and you can pursue it with God. And to be honest with you, sometimes I don't know the difference between the 2 things. Okay? It's difficult to tell apart. Sometimes when I'm pursuing wisdom from others, I think I am pursuing it with God. Okay? But I think both of those are distinct things we can pursue. James 1:5 says, if any of you lacks wisdom, what? Ask of God, right? Ask of God. He gives generously and without finding fault, and it will be given to him. So ask God. I have found that getting alone, seeking wisdom through prayer and the Bible can be so helpful to align my heart, to align my mind with God's. And no doubt that can empower me to see things differently, to help me make better choices, to help me be a better influence on those around me. Remember, as I mentioned, even Esther, listened to Mordecai, and she had everyone fast for 3 days before she went and approached the king. Now, here's the deal. When I'm seeking God and I'm asking for wisdom, I'm not asking for the answers of what to do. I'm asking for wisdom of what to do. And that's different. Man, if I just sit and wait for an answer, do this. I mean, as I've grown up, I have 2 boys now that are 22 and 21. Man, I don't want them just calling me, what do I do? But I like talking about having wisdom on making decisions. It's their decisions now to make. You have to make decisions. God's not making them for you, but he can give us wisdom on how to make it. But it's not just by God that we seek wisdom. And I believe we should also seek wisdom from others. It says in Proverbs 15:22, plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. So the more counselors we can have, the more people we can have that are seeking wisdom, the better. If you find yourself at a place of feeling powerless, maybe it's time for you to get connected with people. Find someone that you can talk to. Find someone that you trust that is wise, that could help you walk through this feeling of powerlessness, because that is how you want to become more of a person of influence. Man, this came, for me, I had to seek out people during this time of feeling powerless over the last year. I did it a lot, and it really was helping. There's no way I could have overcome, I think, those feelings of failure, those feelings of powerlessness if I wasn't seeking it with other people. So that's the first one. Second is this: choose to consider others. Choose to consider others. That is a choice. This is a huge factor in my life when it comes to choices. And realizing that allowing, this feeling of being powerless, if I just keep focusing on this powerlessness, it could become the self-focused, myopic way of living. It could just consume you. My choices and decisions are affecting others, good or bad. Don't think, I'm just going to not worry about it. I'm not going to affect any or influence anyone. You are influencing people. And thinking about that and realizing that can have a huge impact on the decisions and on the choices you might make. And whether that be in your house, at school, at work, or in the world around us, considering others is so powerful. And I found that choosing to consider others instead of just thinking of myself, even my own powerlessness, even my own woe is me, I don't have, right? It's helped me to stop feeling so powerless. And I believe, and it begins to help me believe, that I can have an influence. You see, I doubt Esther would have risked her life going to the king if it wasn't for considering her people. All the people, not just her. It was because of what was going to happen to all the people that made her make that decision. Philippians is one of my favorites, right? In humility, consider others better than yourself. Each of you should look not only to your own interest, but also to the interest of others. I mean, this is like, it's just had the same mindset and attitude of Christ Jesus. This is all over the Bible, the idea of thinking about others. How much do you really spend time considering your actions and how they affect others, considering their interests? Starting with your spouse, your kids, your parents, your co-workers, people at school, those hurting, those suffering, the world around us. And I've met so many people that have made radical life changes that have caused them to be these incredible, influential people because others captured their hearts. I mean, huge to move to other places in the world, to adopt many kids, to foster kids, to make decisions that affect them for the benefit of other people. And that is a powerful thing to do. And I think Esther shows that, and it might be something you might do too. And here's the final one. Choose to do something. Do anything. Do something. I heard that statement along, do something, do anything. I heard it years ago, a pastor that I was underneath said that. And this idea of do something, man, do anything, move. Don't just sit still and wait to be motivated or for something to drop in your lap. Do something, do anything. My wife said earlier today when we were hanging out, powerlessness causes paralysis. How true is that? And when you need to start moving, you need to get your body moving again if you have paralysis and you could potentially come out of it. Or you might find the inability to move is just going to become more and more of a reality. So do something. I can't encourage you enough. Galatians chapter 5 says, yes, my brothers, you were called to be free, right? But don't use your freedom to indulge in the sinful nature. Rather, serve one another in love, right? Do something. And I think this idea of the freedom of indulging in the sinful nature could be that feeling of powerlessness. I mean, it could be sin, I just live for myself, but it also could be kind of lying in this, I have nothing to offer, right? That could be also indulging in the sinful nature, but serving one another. Esther went for it. And she did something, having no idea what the outcome would be. And if you've ever been feeling powerless, then do something to serve. Do anything. Just a couple weeks ago, I was talking to a gentleman from our church who lost his wife back in December. And it's just been a very difficult time for him. And all of a sudden he called me up and he goes, hey, I want to work with the poor. How can I get connected with Community Mission of Hope? I've always had the heart for the poor. It's time for me to do something. He felt powerless last month, and now he wants to be an influencer. He wants to influence people. He knows not only that will that impact him, but those around him. We want to be friends, right? Diverse group of friends that focus on what? Mercy, justice, and love. That's our focus moving forward. Find a place to either give of your resources, to give of your time, to help with mercy, working with the needy, or justice, the abused, or the exploited. What can you become a part of? Or where can you show more love? Maybe you just need to start in your home, your work, your school, or your community. I want to end with this. You are not powerless, no matter how you feel. Your life makes a difference. So do something that will influence the world around you. Seek wisdom, right? Seek wisdom. Make sure that you're talking to people around you. And do something. Do something. Don't just wait. Don't let the feeling of powerlessness stop you from making an influence on the world around you. God wants to use you. I hope you'll let him. I hope you'll let him. Hope this has been encouraging for you. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. And I hope you'll join us again next week as we continue and we take a look at Jesus, the ultimate setbacks with the ultimate comebacks.